Okay, we're live.
That was quick.
Yeah. Hi everyone, we're having some technical difficulties tonight. We've had to create a new Google Hangout for everyone to get in because I could not log in earlier. I couldn't accept the invitation earlier, so Michelle had to create another event in general for everyone. So tonight we are doing chapter 4, and I don't know, Georgette and Labib, have y'all seen the discussion questions online?
Yes, yes, I did.
Yes.
So just while we wait for Michelle to work that out, can both of you introduce yourselves to everybody who's watching?
Say that again, Randy.
Can you introduce yourselves to everybody who's watching, just where you're watching from and how you feel about this discussion tonight?
Okay. Ladies before gentlemen.
Oh my, okay. Okay, my name is Georgette Moses. I'm watching from Columbia, South Carolina, and I'm really excited about this discussion tonight. Randy, you've got some great questions here.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello, Georgette, Randy, and Michelle. This is Labib. This is my second time tuning in, and I agree with you, Georgette. You have some great questions here, Randy. I'm checking in from New York. And Georgette, just real quick, you're in my parents' hometown now, Columbia, South Carolina.
All right, excellent.
Okay, thank you both. So again, my name is Randy Henderson. I am a Black Women's Blueprint member and intern, and I am watching this video blog from Atlanta. So tonight we are focusing on chapter 4. There's open season on Negroes now, and this book club runs from June 3rd to July 29th every Tuesday from 6:30 to 8. And I'm not sure if Michelle wants us to wait for her before we start the discussion or not. I don't even know if she's listening. Michelle?
I think you might have lost her. Okay.
I see her.
No, I'm still here. Give me 1 minute.
Okay. I guess now we wait.
How's that weather down south? Y'all
Oh boy.
It's hot.
Yes, yes.
you know, every time it's hot, I just think about our people, in the past when a pre-fan and pre-air conditioner and having to be out, and laboring, from sun up, to sundown. I always, I would always feel that,
Yeah.
I'm not one I don't like the heat myself. I mean, I'm moderate temperatures, but, every time that does get hot here, or I read about temperatures rising in the high 90s and 100s down south or out west, I feel for our people.
Okay. I'm here.
Did Vanita get in?
No, I haven't talked to her though, so I'm not completely sure that she plans to be here. Well, she had me invite her daughter-in-law's sister and her son. So I did think he was going to be here tonight. So anyway, I've done all I can do now at this point to tell people about the change. So I think we should just go ahead. You know how I keep telling y'all Google Plus is glitchy. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So, okay. Randy, you want to start?
Yes. Oh, did you want to introduce yourself again, everyone else has already went.
Everyone has already done that. I am
Hmm.
Michelle Odom, a member and staff person with Black Women's Blueprint. I am in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Michelle. So I'll read the highlights, and then if Georgette or Labib would read the first key point when I'm done, and then whoever reads the key point read the discussion question as well. So it just flows. So we're not looking at each other crazy, trying to figure out who's
Okay.
gonna read.
All right. I'm going to be unable to do that.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm going to be unable to do that. I don't have the printout. I have it online, and I'm not
Oh,
internet
okay.
savvy where I can switch between the two. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, Georgette or Michelle, either one. I'll read the highlights though, just so. So the highlights from
Okay.
this chapter: Backlash to Brown versus Board of Education, the attempted rape of Melba Patillo, Little Rock, Arkansas, May 17th, 1954. Daisy and Elsie Bates in the Black Press, Little Rock. Kidnap and rape of Annette Butler, Tylertown, Mississippi, May 13th, 1956. Bombingham and white mob violence, Emmett Till.
Hello?
Castration of Edward Judge. Hello? Oh, that's
Yeah.
Michelle. Castration of Edward Judge Aaron.
I just sent
Black Men Fight Back.
your email.
Training Young Racists meets Rock and Roll. The Kissing Case. Monroe, North Carolina. Melba Patillo and Little Rock 9
Yes.
integrate Central High School, September 24th, 1957.
Okay. All right. You want me to read the first key point?
Please, please.
Okay. Melba Patillo, a 12-year-old African American student at Dunbar, wondered what all the fuss was about. She gathered her books and started on the route she had taken home for nearly 6 years. The sound of rustling leaves snapped her back to reality. She stopped and listened carefully, straining to see through the thick flora. Suddenly, a deep voice sliced through the brush. "You want a ride, girl?" "Who is it?" she asked nervously. "I got candy in the car, lots of candy." Patillo inched forward and saw a burly white man coming toward her. She turned and fled in the opposite direction, screaming for help and running as fast as her black and white sandal shoes could carry her. "You better come and take a ride home," he growled. "You hear me, girl?" He was a huge man, Patillo recalled later, built like a wrestler. He chased Patillo through the wooded path, niggers wanting to go to school with his children, and how he wasn't going to stand for it. Suddenly, Patillo tripped on her shoelaces and fell. As she struggled to stand, he grabbed her shoulders, thrust her to the ground, and flipped her over on her back, then pinned her down and began fumbling with his belt buckle. "I'll show you niggers the Supreme Court can't run my life," he said as he reached toward Patillo's dress and ripped off her underwear. In her account, he scrambled out from underneath him and started to run. And the first discussion question is, has there been a point in the book where you just needed to take a break? Because the story of Melba Patillo was definitely one of those for me. How did you feel reading her story? Do you have anything new to say to the strategic and premeditated planning white men took when it came to raping black girls and women, no matter what their age?
Does anyone want to take a stab at that first question?
Um, you all go on without me. I'm getting a lot of messages from people trying to get in. Vanita's trying to get in. Let me work with her for a minute. So go on without me, okay?
Okay.
All right. Well, yeah. When I read that scene, the description of the scene, it just really places you there in, Melba's her vulnerability. This she's thinking of something else, walking home, thinking about her, dreaming about her life, you know, how she would like it to be when she grows up, and suddenly this force of evil interrupts it, and you know, his brute physicality on a child, attempting to do something, you know, this heinous on a child because of what he believes his rights are being taken away from him, which, you know, is pretty ridiculous because they had all the rights anyway, you know, and just yeah, just as you said, it just made me want to take a break, as well as a lot of the other descriptions of the rapes
Mhm.
that have occurred in this book. You know, and these are just the, you know, this is just the tip of the iceberg when you realize how many have, you know, gone on. And then when you go on here to ask, do I have anything new to say about the strategic and meditated planning? Well, I know it's a rape is a weapon of war.
Mhm.
It's a terroristic activity to, you know, not just for girls and, you know, and women as it is in this document here that we're reading, but men and boys and everywhere. This one thing, this act that you can do, perpetrate upon another person to demean them and remove their power over their own body and who they think they are, you know, or what, um, who they belong to. You fragment them psychologically as well as physically, and going back to, you know, just the arena of black girls and women, you've taken away from the people who are the basis of the culture of the family unit and affected it for generations to come. And so that's what I have to say about that.
That's that's uh that's quite insightful, Georgette. When I read that passage, um, my reaction was similar to yours. The sense of powerlessness, um, to effect a defense against such open terrorism, that could attack you at any time, uh, on any day of the week, in your entire lifetime. And then the last point that you made about um, this being done to a young girl, and that she and others weren't the only ones. These are the ones that we hear about or have heard about. But there are countless ones whose stories have not reached the public ear. Um, but the terrorism that was perpetrated against our people, um, affected and still affects the generations right down to us today. And we can see today the internalization of that terrorism, of that powerlessness, and then now we are effectively doing these acts against ourselves. Just a sidebar note. I saw a video clip of uh, not an elderly woman, but a middle-aged woman. She was sitting on the park bench, and some young girls, late teens, came up to her and accosted her, and then began to beat her to the ground. And it was all videotaped, for fun. And these are the kinds of things that are going on, throughout the country in our communities. So we can see the staggering effects of the terrorism that has been perpetrated against us for the 2.5 centuries of chattel slavery, and then virtually the 100 years of Jim Crow. So, yeah.
Indeed.
Hi, Vanita.
Hi, Benita. We can't
Hey,
hear you.
Benita.
You're muted.
How you doing? I had a couple of problems getting in this evening.
No, it was all of us. I thought I was doing so well. I started um, setting up the page about 6 o'clock. I sent out invitations right on time at 6:15, and it just was not happening. Then about 6:25, Randy called me frantically, and we started processing, and I ended up having to move to a new page. It's just one of those nights.
It's
So,
okay. You can blame it on the heat.
where's your son?
Clint's not here tonight. I think he had to stay. I'm not sure what time he's going to be back. He had to
Okay.
do some things at work. And Juanita, I invited Dr. Collier, which is my daughter-in-law's sister.
I've been corresponding with her. She's been trying to get in, but given all the problems we're having tonight, I doubt she'll make it.
No, she just texted me, actually.
Okay.
And she'll join us next week.
Okay.
It's getting kind of crazy for her. And actually, she would have been joining later anyways because of her appointments. So,
Okay.
anyway, hi.
Hello.
Who else is there? Georgetta,
Hey, Benita. How you doing?
how you doing?
I'm trying to stay
Georgette,
cool.
not Georgetta.
I thought it was Georgetta. I beg your pardon.
That's okay. I've been called everything from George to Georgetta, so I answer
No,
to
I want to
everything.
pronounce it correctly. Is it Georgette?
Georgette, that's it.
Georgette, I got you. Okay.
And Labib is here.
Hi, Labib. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Anita?
Life is good in Venitaville.
Yeah, very good. 6 feet above, as opposed to 6 feet below.
That's what I'm telling you.
Hey.
Right.
So,
Michelle or Benita, do you have anything to say to the first key question, the first discussion question?
I'm sorry, could you summarize for us kind of what was said, if it's not too much trouble?
No, it's not. I read the first key point, and that was Melba Patillo's 12-year-old African American student at Dunbar who was
Right.
almost raped. And
Right.
Georgette just read through the description of it, and the discussion question that followed was: has there been a point in the book where you just needed to take a break? Because the story of Melba Patillo was definitely one of those for me. How did you feel about reading her story? Do you have anything new to say to the strategic and premeditated planning white men took when it came to raping black girls and women, no matter their age?
Okay. And Labib, you responded to that?
Yeah. Yes, I did. Recognizing, these acts were acts of terrorism. Let me add that there are also cowardly acts, and they were acts that had a profound effect, as Georgette mentioned, on the victim's psyche and sense of self, and that it has had long reaching effects right on down to our generation today.
And Georgette, you
Yeah.
responded also? Yeah.
Yes, I did. Mhm.
What'd you kind of say?
Well, Habib did a good job of reiterating what I said, but
Okay.
I just said it was, it's used as a weapon of war.
Yeah.
We were at war. Well, they were at war with us. We were just trying to live, and they used this to fracture, our psyche, fracture our communities, and as Labib said, just create an imbalance. So, and that fear powerfully kept them from doing many more things probably than they could have done. And when you have a family unit and you attacking the most cherished portion, we believe, which are your women and your girls, your daughters, then what does that place the it takes away the power of the man in the family, or
Correct.
and the other men in the community. They have no nothing to use to
Yeah.
defend themselves.
Thank you. I guess for me, in terms of Randy's question about did you reach a point where you need to take a break? Um, this is my second time reading the book, and I think that for me, the value in reading a book a second time is that you see things differently. I see more things. Um, and so I may have felt like that the first time I read the book. Um, but it's not impacting me in that same kind of way. To me, this particular chapter really made me think about the phrase "the personal is the political," and I think that she's basically in this chapter looking at um, how some white people reacted to the Brown v. Board of Education decision, um, and how they took their anger out in very personal and sexualized ways. How they reacted to Brown v. Board, and how some white people reacted to our march toward voting rights. And so they used personalized tactics. It was a war, but it was very, very personal. Um, and so it starts out with the personal experience of the rape, with a man talking about, the Supreme Court can't run my life, and it ends up with the integration of Central High School in Little Rock, um, with the same young woman where the guy had attempted to rape her. Um, so I saw it, I guess, more analytically this time than emotionally. But I do think the first reading can take you to a very emotional place.
I'm gonna say this, if I may, Michelle. I take this, this account of personalized terrorism, um, and I elevate it also to collective terrorism or systematic or institutionalized terrorism, and it just makes me aware of the tactics that have been employed to marginalize black folk and to otherwise not truly include black folks in the mainstream of affairs of America, the country in which we all live.
Right.
Let me make this note here that in the North, for example, the way in which the Northerners got out of honoring integration or honoring Brown versus Board of Education was they founded a number of private schools, high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, to take their children out of the public school spectrum, because this Brown v. Board of Education related to public schools and not parochial or private or Catholic or religious schools. Those schools were exempt. And so what I found in some of my research was that the white folks got pretty slick in that they knew that they would be caught up in the courts, and the courts would side on the favor of integration. So what they did was they moved out of neighborhoods, and moved into different neighborhoods where we couldn't get in, They fortified themselves that way, and they founded private schools where you had to, if as a black person you wanted to apply to that school, you had to fulfill certain, let's say, religious obligations. You might have been a Baptist, and they were looking for Lutherans, so you couldn't get in, and it wouldn't be seen as any kind of a discrimination.
Right.
So we just have seen a continuation, I think is my point.
Right, and I think, you know, even now with the sort of backtracking that we're doing around voting rights,
correct.
You know, is again another example of how some white folks act out when things are not going their way. You know, they're mad because we have a black president.
Correct.
And they have been carrying on and acting up ever since.
This is true.
You know.
Again, not to divert too much from the main, but what we're seeing then, I think, is, you know, is acting out in a systematic kind of a way. So it becomes impersonal, if you will, but it affects us personally.
Absolutely.
The Supreme Court just recently agreed that one's money is one's political voice, and therefore it's protected under, I guess, is the First Amendment, freedom of speech. So this allows for people who have money individually.
Isn't that crazy?
Absolutely. So the idea of one man, one vote, one woman, one vote under democracy has been completely undermined. And what does that do? Then that makes the white folks individually, who are upset at the fact that, you know, black folks have been able to elect a black president for the first time in U.S. history, to prevent them and to prevent other non-white elitist white folk from realizing, you know, that American dream, that one of their own beside a white person can become president of the United States.
Let me bring Vanita in, because my spirit tells me she's just itching to get in. Vanita.
Yes. I don't know. Yes, it's always difficult to read, and I've read those stories many times. I was actually, like this young lady or young girl, almost a victim myself at that age. The only difference was it was in my own neighborhood of all black people. So.
Yeah, you know, you missed, I think it was the first chapter 1 where Randy and I talked a lot about, you know, all the stories of rape and sexual assault that we personally know about involved a black perpetrator. And, you know, how times have changed.
Yes. And that's what hurts me more than anything else. You know, I mean, Satan lives, and we know that. Mm-hmm. And I know that white men don't even see us as humans. Right. But our own men, that's what really hurts.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, black women, it's dangerous. It's dangerous being a black woman. You got to watch out for the white man. You got to watch out for the white woman. You got to watch out for the black man. Well, if it wasn't for Jesus, I don't know who we have. And that's what makes me feel so sad.
Yeah, because I started to say ourselves, but even that's not very true anymore.
It really isn't. It really isn't. I just don't know what happened. I just don't know. I don't know what happened. But I've seen this story play out so many times. Because growing up in the city of Philadelphia, where I grew up, and I spent the most of my time, actually about probably 70% of my time, in Society Hill, where my godparents lived. My parents lived in South Philadelphia. This stuff played out all the time. You know, I was that little girl that escaped that food. You know, and It's just so common. It's more common in our own neighborhoods than people really realize. And it's just so sad, you know. It doesn't get any better, you know. I'm able to read it, but it really makes me so sad.
Anita, let me ask you, do you think that we as a people, and then break it down individually, have we had an opportunity at the healing process? Again, we have gone through a dehumanizing process, an animalization process, and a criminalization process. Do you think that we've had opportunity at the healing process? You know, I ask you.
In reference to
just over our existence in this country. I mean, do you think that we've had opportunity to, you know, to heal from the obvious damages that have been done to us, such that you know, we end up perpetrating it ourselves? I mean, that's about where we are today, you know.
Well, first of all, and this is only how I see it, is yes, we've had the opportunity, but first you have to recognize that you need a healing process.
That's key.
and black folks, families, and I can speak for what I know and what I've experienced, they haven't even recognized that they need to heal. We've had the opportunity, but for whatever reason it might be, that was not one of our priorities. And so the same thing and the same mentality has been passed down generation after generation.
Correct.
I could go on forever with that, and I'm not going to bore you with it. But yes, we have had time. We've had time to heal. But we have to first recognize that we need healing.
I got you.
It's a big task, and it's difficult.
Absolutely.
And you know, and I know, and I've been black a long time, and this is good for me, that we are also people in denial. We deny everything. You know, we can pray on it and it goes away. Yeah, some things do, but most things don't. You know, so it's a lot of things, a lot of problems that our community experiences. We just I wouldn't for that. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Well, I appreciate, you know, what you're saying, and I think that you know, you hit the nail on the head. The opportunities have been there, but we haven't individually necessarily and collectively, you know, taken up that opportunity, you know, to engage the healing process. First step is acknowledgement that there is in fact a problem, and then step two is to take ownership and responsibility. You know, and you know. Especially nowadays, that seems to be lacking very much so.
It's very difficult also for you to recognize that there's a problem, because when you live in the inner city and you live in a ghetto, and if everyone around you is feeding off each other, and I call them parasites, they're like predators. If that's all you see, that's all you know. So how can you identify anything when that's all you see? That was my experience growing up in the city when I was growing up as a child. That was my experience.
I got you, Anita. And again, that goes back to the point that Georgette had made earlier, that, you know, we are seeing and we are living and we are experiencing, you know, the side effects of our initial trauma, you know, of being raped and terrorized, male and female, young and old. None of us were exempt, you know, from this terrorism is, you know, Best to put it.
Right. Let me ask Georgette. Georgette, do you have a word of compassion here? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I agree.
Okay.
I agree. We, if you categorize it as a, the opportunity of time, have you had time to heal? Okay, there has been time. Now, having the means and the method, the motivation, and the follow-up to do it successfully, no, I don't think we've had that.
Ver-
We haven't. We've been too busy. We've been kept too preoccupied with just survival, and then
Yeah.
something heaped upon that to really go about the business of healing yourself. You got to heal yourself before you can heal the people around you. And how
Right.
can you heal? How can you get to that point if you're worried about them robbing you or stabbing you in the back, or whether you going to be fired tomorrow? So.
Yeah. That's how I see it. That's how
Well,
I see it.
I understand that. However, I've always lived by the rule. Why would I do something to someone that I know hurts?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's a thing called a heart. Besides all the other stuff, I grew up in the ghetto. Why don't I see fit to go around shooting people, stabbing people, hurting people, and doing things that I know is going to hurt other people? Why is that?
Because you're youth and
You know,
people are
I
unique.
didn't have any special means of healing. I had to deal with bullets coming through the neighborhood, gang wars on my front step, escaping rape, drugs, all kinds of things. But I knew there's no way in the world I would even think about inflicting the pain on someone else that I was feeling every day.
Benita,
So I just don't understand. And we're feeling people. Black people are feeling people. What happened? What happened when we got to the point where we don't feel? What happened when it got to the point? And I grew up as a young child in the 60s and a preteen and teenager in the 70s, where we don't, instead of helping that elderly black woman with her bag, taking her bag.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, you are a very strong person, and you're asking what happened. You know, people are broken. A lot of people are seriously broken, and sometimes you're so broken that you can't fix yourself. Sometimes you're broken, but you can still find the wherewithal to kind of pull yourself together. Um, and sometimes we don't all cope in the same way and react in the same way to the very same
Thing, right? Yeah.
situation. Yeah. Because we are different. I think we are challenged as human beings all along the way to learn to accept difference. Um, whether you're a different color skin or you're a different um, sexuality or you're a different hairstyle. Nobody knows I got my hair cut off.
I saw it.
You look lovely.
Yes, it looks nice.
Very cool.
Whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, or there are we are a just a jumble of differences, and so much of the lack of peace that we have in the world comes from the expectation that everybody is going to follow a particular path or act a certain way or be the same. That is not the reality. And I think, I think we can't begin to get to a healthy place until we can start to accept the reality of differences among human beings. Randy, you're on mute. Why don't you take the mute off so we can just hear you and whenever you feel like it. And why don't we move on to the next question?
Okay. Michelle, do you want to read the discussion, the key point number 2 and the discussion question?
Okay. By 1954, however, a veil of secrecy had descended among African. Am I on the right one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Key point number 2, right?
Yes.
Okay. A veil of secrecy had descended among African American activists. In the years after Brown, more than 500,000 people opposed to integration and dedicated to white supremacy joined organizations like the White Citizens Council, the Ku Klux Klan, and the American States Rights Association, and launched an all-out war against the burgeoning freedom struggle. Death threats and dynamite blasts shook civil rights advocates across the region. The Patillos understood that the swirling storm of resistance that segregationists unleashed after Brown made silence about sexual violence a political imperative. Demagoguery of miscegenation fanned followers' fears to a red-hot rage. Most did not explicitly advocate violence, but their extremist rhetoric undoubtedly encouraged it. Some politicians could not hold back. A few killings now, a Mississippi legislator boasted, could save a lot of bloodshed then. Am I reading the question?
Yes.
What do you think of white supremacist groups mentioned in key points number 2 and the fact that the United States refused and still refuses to publicly recognize these groups as terrorists? If members of the KKK and other white supremacist groups inflicted as much terror on white people as they do on blacks, do you believe this would be the case?
Well,
Benita?
I think I might want to listen for the rest of the night.
Right.
Oh, no.
What universe are we in?
I don't feel good. I'm having a lupus attack today. I'm feeling really bad. But of course not. Of course not. It's the same. A good analogy is when we had the bombing of the Twin Towers, and our country started to profile a certain group of people. However, we had the Oklahoma City bombing, which was a man with blonde hair and blue eyes. And I hardly saw our country going around profiling every white man with blonde hair and blue eyes. So we selectively choose, or our country selectively chooses, who's a terrorist and who's not.
Right.
And besides, and I should say in addition to that, Ku Klux Klansmen and white supremacists don't wear signs on their backs or their fronts. If they did, most of the times we'd be able to identify them and we could turn and go the other way.
Right.
But if you have maybe these folks in your Senate, if you have them in your Congress, and you might even have them on your Supreme Court, they're your doctors, they're your lawyers, they're your teachers. The question again was what? So you have to, all things considering it, and if you're willing to accept it, no, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't.
Okay. Randy?
Hmm? Me and Vanita are on the same page tonight. He is saying everything I want to say. So I don't even know. Really, Michelle, when I was reading this chapter, I was panicking because I was like, Michelle is going to be so mad at me. I can't finish this chapter. That's all I was thinking about. Like, she's going to be so mad at me. But I finished, and I did the discussion questions and the key points. I don't know what it is about this chapter and the more we get into this book and
It was a very violent chapter.
yeah,
Well,
it was. It
Yeah.
was. I mean, Atlanta just we just had the KKK just had a meeting on the steps of downtown Atlanta a few months ago. I think in April, and they had police officers lined up on the street to keep anybody from attacking them, even though this is a terrorist group. And
Yeah.
they're they had their, I don't know what the little horn is called, so they can speak and they had black police officers up there, and I'm just like, what is this black man thinking? Like, how is he feeling right now to be put on this duty? Did he choose it? Could he have said no? And it's just we're not. It's just a constant reminder that we're not safe. And as long as you are a citizen of America, you can use the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and get away with everything. I mean, but of course, a black person couldn't shoot out a white person's car because his country music was too loud and we felt threatened. But Michael Dunn could do that to Jordan Davis, and it's this constant double standard, which is why, like last week, I said I don't believe in respectability policy because it don't seem like no matter what we do, we can still get killed and still don't get looked after, and terrorist groups that have proven to be terroristic don't get called what they are, and we have to sit in Atlanta and watch them have their meeting and can't do nothing about it.
Welcome to blackness.
I'll make a comment on that, please.
I was thinking earlier today, when I was about your age, Randy, I was living in D.C. and my mom and my younger brother had come to visit me, and I thought it was a good idea to take them out to I think it was an anti-apartheid rally that I was going to, and the KKK had decided that they wanted to march in D.C. because they didn't really like the idea of ending apartheid. And time I knew anything, there were police on horses and white men and guns flying, and me and my mom and my baby brother are running for cover. And this is life in America. And, in terms of us not being safe anywhere, we're not. I mean, to me, when we talk about what happened, so many people of my generation, and I'm 54, so I was a young child during the 60s, and and so therefore not directly involved in the protest of the 60s, but was starting to kind of see what was going on in the 70s and 80s. But so many people of my generation seem to feel that the work was done, that we had arrived, that, that whatever, all the work that we had seen go on to knock down doors so that we would have opportunities. Many of my peers felt like they no longer were obligated to move through the world in that way. And so, and so they went on and they got good jobs and they started making lots of money and they bought big homes and big cars and started looking down their nose on poor black folks and that's what it was. Got educations and all these degrees and whatnot, but disconnected from blackness to whatever extent they could, which is, a little tricky when your skin is black, but did the best they could. And so, while we were off in this little slumber thing, white folks, the same white folks we're reading about in At the Dark End of the Street, had not given up their full-blown hatred of blackness, but we're busy coming up with new and better ways to make our lives hell on earth. And so that's where we are. White folks are very organized. That's why they could pull off all that Tea Party action, like that, because they never stopped. We stopped. We went to sleep, and I don't know. I mean, you're at that age. You're a young woman. You've got loads of choices before you, and maybe you'll choose to direct your life toward making some difference in these conditions that we've been dealing with for hundreds of years, or maybe you'll go in the other direction. But that's where we are. Our lives have not substantially changed since we got brought to this country. I'm done.
Good points, Michelle. I concur. We went to sleep. Vanita asked what happened, and what happened is we went to sleep and we were put to sleep. We were put in a comatose state, a state of unawareness, a state of disconnect from our past experiences and the wisdom that we could learn from those past experiences. And another, we've been constantly and relentlessly under attack. Attack from our objective to be included into the mainstream of life in America. It's like that dream that's unfulfilled. Langston Hughes asked the question, what happens to a dream deferred? That's been our story. Or as Malcolm said about the dream, he said it wasn't a dream, it was a nightmare. And the nightmare being our real existence.
Right.
And so I think that what we have to do today, which is sorely not being done, and that is that we have to educate our children to being and our friends, and whatnot, family, to being responsible for creating a dream that is independent of our dream to be included in the white man's world. Because at bottom, at the end of the day, we are human beings. We are a living organism, and as such, we need to be sustained.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an artificial existence when we depend upon our enemies in particular to sustain us. So we got to disconnect from that dream. King said that we are inextricably tied to white folks. That's slavery talking right there. We're not inextricably tied.
Uh-oh. It froze up. Can anybody hear? Can you hear me?
Mhm.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Can't
Labib
hear Labib.
can't hear Labib. Okay. I guess he'll be back in a minute. Um, Randy, back to you.
Did Vanita or Georgette, do you have anything to say about the second question before we move on?
Well, the only thing I'd like to add is that these kind of groups have been embedded in the government since the beginning, and they're useful to them.
Mm-hmm.
So useful, for the power holders, the people who want to grab the power.
Right.
Because if the nice tactics didn't work, well, then they unleashed the dogs on you. And that's
Right.
going back toward the indigenous peoples when they gave them a little bit of land in the West and said, well, this is yours. But then they found oil and some other precious minerals on it, and they started stuff. It's the
Right.
same thing, which is the same thing they do today, and you'll see that in different countries, the same methods. If it works, they'll keep using it.
Right.
So,
Right. And it works.
unfortunately, and it just makes you. This is my last point, and I'm gonna let you move on. This is my last. It just makes you wonder. Well, what are you talking to me about when you're talking about the terrorists in the Islamic terrorists when we have these guys here under the guise of the Tea Party and in more extreme groups saying just the same thing, trying to be a little less verbally specific about what they really want, but they want the same thing.
Well, they want to take their country back.
Yes. Yeah.
They're clear about that.
Yes. So it's unfair. That's all I have.
All right. Labib, you're back. We lost you.
That in stride, you could probably blame it on blame it on the man. He's probably not satisfied with what we're doing here, or what we're trying to do here, and because we know he listens in.
Oh, yeah.
But
I hope he's listening.
that's right. But essentially, to kind of just tie in, what I'm getting from everyone, from Vanita to yourself, Michelle, and from Georgette and Randy, is that it's time that we retreat from this dream of inclusion, and start doing some things that are necessary for our survival into the future. One of the things that I observe, and this, I'll say this last, so they tie it in. I asked the question: do you ever see a squirrel doing work for another squirrel, and making sure the other squirrel eats? No.
I can't say that I do.
That's right. It is almost against nature that you would do something for someone else that you wouldn't do for yourself, and that you have to do for your own survival's sake. The individual squirrel has to go out at a certain time, a certain season, and start gathering those nuts and hiding those nuts, where he or she will remember where they are come wintertime. You see, and so they can eat through the winter and survive to the spring and through the summer. See, and black folks, due to in 250 plus years of enslaved chattel slavery, where we were reduced to animals, we were eating right alongside, being fed, I should say, right alongside the dog or the pig. This was a reality. And then to go from that stage of animalization and being described as and being treated as even less than a dog, you will get more in trouble even to this day Didn't Michael Vick get jail time for dog fighting and maybe the loss of some dogs' lives, and he got castigated for that. He still lives with that to this day. On the flip side, we had the young brother, just one of several, Trayvon Martin, who was killed by a man who wasn't even a police officer. Was pursued by a man who wasn't even a police officer. Was goaded into defending himself by a man who wasn't even a police officer, and it resulted in his death. And that same white man did not always. He's a white Hispanic. Went to trial and was found not guilty. Didn't serve any jail time. Those kind of things. So it's time that that we reorganize ourselves, regroup, and start doing some things that we need to get done for ourselves.
Yeah, I'm noticing the artwork behind you. That's one of your pieces.
I'm kind of blocking it now. I guess. Okay, there we go. Yes. That's that's a piece of mine that I did probably about 4 years ago now.
Very nice. Y'all know Labib is an artist, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Benita, did you want to respond? Huh?
No, I was saying this art piece reminds me of a piece that Picasso did.
See, some of my other work is more in that vein. But I appreciate the compliment.
No, it's fabulous, and I love art. It's one of my favorite things.
Okay, well, we got to become Facebook friends. You can check out some of the stuff I have up.
All right, now.
Okay.
I don't know what else. I think Georgette summed it up pretty well. It's just as far as the Ku Klux Klansmen, it's funny you say that. I live in Connecticut, and Hartford is probably about 9 minutes from me, right down 91 North. The Ku Klux Klansmen had rallies in the Bushnell Park right up through the 80s. Visibly right to the 80s. They had rallies right there in the Bushnell, which is the center on the green of our downtown. One day I was coming home and I was on one of the main streets where it's all Caucasians, beautiful homes, no big do, but it's a cool street. And I stopped at the traffic light and I turned to the side and they're in the car next to me with all their garb on. This is, the only folks who get a chance to terrorize folks are white folks. If you had 1 million men show up on Capitol Hill, black men with guns on their shoulders say that for the NRA, they would set up the National Guards. You would have the Air Force, Army, you may be out there. But you can have 1 million white men show up Capitol Hill with guns across their shoulders and say we're fighting for the right to keep our guns, NRA. And they say, oh, no problem, come on in. So, I'm never amazed by any of this. I'm just kind of like shock-proof. Because when the Ku Klux Klan was right next to me in the car, I'm like, hey, how you doing? It's like, and the only reason why I stopped because finally they had their large rallies down at Bushnell Park, and folks simply did not show. They were shunned by Connecticut. But at some point, Connecticut was not shunning them, honey. If it wasn't nothing but 25 people out there, it was 25 out there saying, "You go KKK."
Well, it's not polite,
right,
to put on your cape anymore. To put on your
No, you don't. But it's style. No, I would much rather have them put on their capes and their hood and identify them than go into the hospital and go underneath a knife. And I know doctors take a vow, say do no harm. Our business is the business of healing. But I'd rather for that surgeon to have on his hood than to have a flashback. I'd rather for that pediatrician to have on his hood the way to my child, that teacher to have on the hood than to educate my child and got a situation going on. So I don't have a problem with the hood because I can identify. As long as I can identify you, I have choices.
That's right.
But if I can't identify you, I have no choices.
Right.
And that leaves me defenseless.
Correct.
Right. Right.
So, no, I want to keep the hoods on so I know who you are, and I can, like I said, defend myself, walk away, do that to do. But I can't have you walking around here and I don't know who you are. When I write that letter to my congressman, I may be writing to one of the KKK Grand Wizards.
That's right.
Which we had the Grand Wizard live right here in Vernon, Connecticut.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, this town's right here that I don't walk through, ride through, or anything. And we're in 2014. So, no, keep the hoods on so I can identify you. I just can't have you running around here and I don't know who you are. You know.
Okay.
And I know it's sad, and some people may feel a little differently, but I need to be able to identify you. I do. It's scary when I can't.
Randy,
Yes.
you're gonna have to wrestle this crowd. We don't have a problem of people that don't talk.
Hey, Randy.
So you jump in whenever you feel like telling folks to move on.
It's alright. Get
All
to
right.
in everyday life. So, the third key point. Okay, Annette Butler, a 16-year-old high school student, was in bed with her mother when she heard someone pounding on the front door. Ernest Dillon introduced himself as a policeman. "You're under arrest," he said to the girl, "for sacking up with your boyfriend." When her mother objected, Dillon raised a shotgun, grabbed the teenager, and pulled her aside. The four white men drove Butler deep into the Bogey Cheeto swamp, where they took turns raping her. Owen Duncan threatened to cut her neck off if she resisted. On April 5, 1957, Judge Brady sentenced Ernest Dillon to 20 years hard labor. Brady castigated Dillon for bringing bitter condemnation upon his community and state and the entire South for attacking Annette Butler. His actions, Judge Brady told Dillon, will bring further vitriolic attacks on our region from those who hate the South. The knowledge that black women are not safe anywhere, including even in their own home, is troubling. What do you think was different about this case compared to the other ones we have read of black women being raped? Are you surprised at the judge's 20-year hard labor sentence he gave to Dillon?
What was different? This,
He got sentenced. That was different. That's about it.
No, I mean, but what about, like, this isn't the first time a black woman has been gang raped by
Absolutely
white
not.
men
Absolutely not.
in the state where they say where states where people have problems with interracial anything. So the rapings have been going on for a long time up until this point, but there was something about this case that had this judge decide, even though he was a white supremacist racist, decide that he was going to give Ernest Dillon 20 years. So I don't know.
well,
My question was,
I think it goes to you know what I was saying earlier, that she is McGuire is looking at how white people's fears around integration that results from sex between black and white people, you know, how they were reacting to their fears around that. So in this case, the judge was basically throwing this boy out of the white community because he was saying, you know, you are, you know, you're not going along with the program. You're around here raping black women. You know, basically somebody's going to get pregnant, and now we have a problem. So he gave him a good rap on the hand there because he wanted to reinforce the message for other white men that, you know, if you're going to be a white man, you're going to need to keep your dick in your pants when you see a black woman. So
I'm gonna take it both two ways, Michelle. That's a very good point. You know that you bring up. I'm reminded of Strom Thurmond, who was a
Big time
senator.
racist. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Big public segregationist congressman from South Carolina. Served I don't know how many decades in
Too
Congress.
many.
Right, too many. Now we learned publicly anyway, late in his career that he impregnated a black woman who was a domestic at his family's house. Yeah. Okay. And
I forgot about that. Yeah.
No.
They had a daughter, and he had financed the maintenance of this black woman as well as her daughter. And I think that's when the daughter I think got into college or something like that is when the story got out publicly. It might have been known locally, but it was hushed for 40 years or so. So here's a man talking about miscegenation and that kind of thing, against the mixing of the races and so on and so forth. And there he was, doing that. So that ties into, that piece, that you're saying the judge's position was, look, if white men are so against, the mixing of the races, then you have to learn to, keep your stuff in your pants.
Right.
The other piece of it that comes to mind is that perhaps the judge was thinking, look, we have an image to uphold, and the eyes of the country and the eyes of the world are looking at us, because again, remember in the time period, and we can't appear a certain way and still maintain the separation of the races, or still maintain our racist goals. So I think this was a time when white folks individually and collectively, especially in positions of power, began to get smart, get slick, and find new ways of oppressing black folks, found new ways of keeping black folks out that would pass the scrutiny of the public, would pass the indignation of the nation, and perhaps even more significantly of the international community. One of the reasons why, perhaps the main reason why bus integration took place was because the stories of white resistance reached all the way to Moscow. And the United States was trying to appear to be the leader of freedom throughout the world, and so Russia's leadership was able to use the fact of the mistreatment of black folks against white folks' authority, white Americans' authority, to say that they were the leaders of the free world. So it was a matter of public, what do you call it? PR, public relations, that put pressure on these white folks over here in positions of authority and decision making to then begin to find other ways in which to pretend to include us. At the same time, doing a reverse act and becoming more entrenched in their goal to remain a segregated nation.
Yeah. Randy?
Does anyone else have anything to say to question 3?
It was strictly a political move. Had nothing to do about anything. Judge Brady could give a damn, excuse expression, about Dylan or anybody else. It was a political move. They could care less about the victim. They did us no favor. Mind you, it was only Dylan. There were 3 or 4 of them that actually committed that crime. And the other ones were found guilty on lesser charges because the only other punishment was either imprisonment or death or one or the other.
Right.
So it was all political. He because the other ones were actually slapped on the wrist and acquitted, and because we raised hell, it made them not look too good because they wanted to make everyone else think that, oh, we're trying to do the best we can to integrate, the rest of our country, and more, that's the rest of our world they want. But it had nothing to do with anything. It was all political. Absolutely, positively political. As everything is now.
Right.
Once again, we had an incident in Massachusetts, I'll make this very quick. About 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, a prominent doctor in a prominent neighborhood in Massachusetts decided, for whatever reason, he wanted to, and so they claimed that they had some marital issues and things like that, stabbed his pregnant wife to death, stabbed her to death. This is a prominent doctor in Massachusetts. They went through every black neighborhood in Massachusetts and randomly gathered black men that he said a black man had done it right here down the street about 15 years ago. No big deal.
I remember that.
You remember that?
Yes,
However, come to find out, make a long story short, his brother actually figured out that he had been the one who committed the murder because he gave his brother his wife's big fat diamond and told him to hold it. The brother like, hold this for what? Brother went to police, turned him in. He ended up committing suicide because they're cowards. Okay? And I was really mad about that. You don't be jumping off no bridge. That made me mad. He decided to go out there and jump off the bridge and kill himself. Make long and short of the story is, if they said it was a white man, would they have gone through all the white neighborhoods of Massachusetts and start gathering up all the white folks, putting back in paddy wagons? But they actually did that. And they actually held a black man and was ready to actually had charged him with first-degree murder. Just a random black man, because they say we all look alike. So he described some black man, where a lot of black men may be 5'10", most of them got brown hair or black hair with brown eyes. This happened in Massachusetts.
I don't remember that.
Nothing has changed. And it's all political. Nothing has changed. Absolutely,
Right.
positively not.
You're right.
I mean, it's just sad. It's just so, and I hate to get emotional about it, but it just goes on forever, and nothing has changed. And how black folks never thought they arrived where? Cemetery?
To the next plantation.
It's. But anyway, next, Randy.
Well,
Much.
question 4 is very similar to question 3 in terms of how do you feel about it. So I'll skip to question 5, and we can go back if we have time. But question 5, because black musicians performed in front of segregated but sold-out crowds of screaming, ecstatic teenagers, it became impossible to maintain a strict color line in the South. The petrified parents of white teenagers picketed Nat Cole's concerts with signs that read "Rock and Roll breeds integration" and "Ask your preacher about jungle music." Asa Carter, a notorious anti-Semite and racial terrorist who served as head of the North Alabama White Citizens Bill and later became Governor George Wallace's speechwriter, wrote against sensuous Negro music in his magazine, The Southern. Rock and roll, he said, appealed to the base in man and encountered animalism and vulgarity. So, what similarities, if any, do you see in the disdain surrounding Nat Cole's music and his performance compared to the untimely death by murder of Jordan Davis? He was shot multiple times because his music was deemed threatening by white men. Uncle Dunn.
Whew, Randy. I'm gonna let you answer that, Georgette.
Just throw me in there. Okay. Well, if you think about Nat Cole's music, and according to the description here in the text, it says he tried to make his performance as non-threatening and non-sexual as possible, but still he was, held up as the fictional rapist as opposed to the real rapist, and that had been propagated in throughout here. I kind of lost my thought. And it speaks to the power of music too, where the segregationists wanted to categorize it, as sensuous, Negro music, jungle music. It's going to, debase, our precious children, our women, and to compare that to Michael Dunn. Here's a man who's standing his ground, exercising that right that was given to him, he feels, and listening to music by people he doesn't like, and it's invading his space. So he does what he does. He takes their life. He shoots at them, takes the young man's life, and he feels no regret.
Mhm.
He's
Mhm.
striking the blow for the people who think like him against the mongrelization of America, which is what they think. What rap music, I guess, I guess it was categorized in the news as thug music. Well, the difference between Nat King Cole's music and the music that this young man was playing, rap, Nat King Cole is smooth, who's it harming? It's beautiful. It's not controversial, although they tried to make it controversial.
Mhm.
Whereas rap music, it wants to be controversial because it has a message to say, whether it's negative or positive. They talk about everything. And so that's the difference I saw. In,
Mhm. Mhm.
I think once again, the white individual feels that it's their civil duty to check a black person, and the parameters of that checking and this prescription for what they deem as a problem is left up entirely to that white individual. So that white individual deems that what the black person is doing in this particular case, listening to music, if that white person deems that that is a threat or that doesn't jibe with what white folks want, then they feel that they're within their rights to eliminate that problem. American whites collectively and individually have never had a problem with exercising violence against black people. So the similarity in the case of Nat King Cole's music and the white sentiment then, and black folks' music today. White folks feel the same way. They feel an obligation, a civic duty, to a personal duty to check a black person and to render a decision. Oftentimes, that decision is one of kill a black person. That's a reality. It doesn't matter the time or the season. It's a reality. It's something that we've had to live with, ever since we've come, into this country.
Wow.
Well, we have 3 minutes left. So, any last comments about this or anything about the chapter before we go?
I didn't hear you.
So we have 3 minutes left before 8. So, does anyone have any last comments about this question or about the chapter before we go?
Do you guys want to go a few minutes longer since we had such a rough start?
sure.
Okay.
I'll say this, if I may. it's close to my prayer time, break my fast and everything. But once again, I just want to commend all of our guests here, our participants here. I really appreciate the thoughts and ideas of everyone here, and I think that this group is most important, and the things that we're discussing are most important. And I hope that that we're taking to heart and taking under consideration what we hear and what we say here, and that we would be able to take it to the next level on a personal level, and as well as an organizational level. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I'm sorry, y'all. Tonight chapter.
Why don't we look at question 6? The young boys in number 6's key point were sentenced to Morrison Training School for Negroes, but then that sentence was overturned and they were returned home nearly 4 months after their arrest. I did not know what to say to this, but believed it to be an imperative key point of the chapter and would like to hear thoughts about the arrest of 8 and 10-year-old boys. As far as I'm concerned, is definitely a key point, Randy. This was the kissing case, right? Which I just, this is some little kids, 8 and 10-year-old black and white children that are out playing, and the white child boy says, let's play the kissing game. And they do, and one of the little white girls, Sissy, goes home and tells her mother, and her mother freaked out, called the police, said the boys tried to rape her, told her husband, and her husband and a gang of full-grown white men went out hunting for these 8 and 10-year-old black boys. Eventually, I think the police found the boys and beat them up. Was it the police that beat them up, or the father and his gang?
It was the police.
Police.
It was the police. And then they arrested these children.
Well, that happened recently also. There was a child in kindergarten that was sitting next to a little black boy that was sitting next to a little white girl. Actually, when they're in kindergarten, yes. And he put his arms around her, and I think that was a few years ago. And we didn't have a mob of angry men run toward this child with a gun, but we instead had a whole school administration against a 5-year-old, and he was expelled for sexual harassment.
Yeah.
So nothing has changed. It stayed the same.
Yep, that's right.
I can't add anything to that. I just can't. What's the difference? A mob of random white folks, or an entire administration in the public school system that expels a 5-year-old because he put his arms around, like little people will do, and held a little girl, around her waist, and she had him around his waist, and a teacher spotted that behavior and said it was sexual harassment. This is a kindergartner. And it happened down south. I don't know the specific town, I don't remember. That was a few years ago. What's the difference? But we have arrived.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're here. I'm done.
Wow.
I don't know either. Michelle's picture's gone. Does anyone see Michelle?
I
I see
see
it,
her.
but she's frozen.
Yeah, that's correct. She's
Yeah,
frozen.
she's frozen.
Yeah.
She's probably gonna come back.
You're
I don't
you're
know.
you're you're done, Randy.
Yes, you are. Randy is sick. She's definitely tired.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
This chapter was
Well,
problematic. I don't know.
go ahead, Randy. I couldn't
I
hear
said
you.
this chapter was problematic. I'm just out of it. Like I've been excited for this book club meeting, but dreading it all week. Like I do.
All right, I think we're done. I'm not going to be a moderator this week because I probably won't be here next week. I have lupus, and today I've been having a lot of problems the past couple of days with the heat. So I'm
Oh,
not feeling at my best, which is why I haven't volunteered to be moderator because the summer is the worst months for me.
yes.
And thank God for central air. Yeah. It's like an ice box here. If you ever notice why I'm wearing short sleeves, because my thermostat is broken, so I'm always warm. Little bit too much information for you, Libby, but I thought you should know.
That's all right.
Michelle's
Okay.
hello.
I think Michelle, something actually happened. Can I call you G, Georgette?
Sure, that's fine.
I see G up here, and I like G, and I like you, and G, I like that.
Oh, well, I like you too, Vanita. I think
I
you
really enjoyed
are.
you so much. Labib, are you about to break
Yeah.
fast? Is it Ramadan?
Yes,
Good
yes,
news.
sis.
All
Yeah.
right.
I've got.
I'm on the Islamic faith. I have Islamic friends that are
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Add me to
giving me a
the
long
list.
hump. Yes.
It's still
I think Michelle, something happened. Randy's
alive.
calling her now. Are you
Yeah.
hungry,
Okay.
babe? I know you are, baby.
Don't
Oh, that's
tease me.
terrible.
You know what I'm saying?
Terrible, Vanita.
You know I had to mess with you, right?
Uh-huh. Well,
And
you
we got
coming?
to make each other smile. We have to. We have to make each other smile every chance
Okay,
we
I'll
get.
just let everybody know
That's
that
right.
you'll moderate and we'll get off. We were doing that anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a few minutes left before I have to break my fast. I'm
Okay.
assuming that we'll have to. I don't know
All
if
right. You're welcome.
Michelle will let us know via inbox or something.
Yeah, that was just Michelle.
Okay.
She lost internet connection. She said she's gonna moderate next week.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Very good.
Randy, are
So
you okay? You look a little tired. You don't feel too good today?
this chapter was draining.
It is.
It was draining, and it's hot. The AC is broken.
Oh
So
Lord, I'll be at the emergency room with lupus, honey. Even no AC, emergency
yeah,
room.
it's broken.
Oh,
So
I didn't know that. We need to let her. No wonder Randy's rocking over there. Let's let her go.
That's
Okay. Yes.
My girl, she is hit today. She is had it. Okay. Well,
well, thank
I'll
you,
let everyone
everyone.
go. Michelle, get in touch with us. You all have a lovely evening. It's always a pleasure. Randy, try to take it easy.
I will. Thank y'all. I'll see y'all next
Okay.
week.
Bye, guys.
all right. Good seeing
All
you all.
right.
Good seeing
Everyone
you.
have a nice evening.
All
Yeah.
right. You too.
All right.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Okay.
All righty now. Okay.